Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my show. Today is Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. I am Solid Blue Sister, and welcome to my turn to talk. Well, today, I'm switching it up a little bit. I'm changing my topic. Today, I want to talk about the media's role of perpetuating divisiveness in America. And this is something that President Obama, talked about over the weekend. And there was just a lot of news going on this past weekend. There's just so much to talk about. But I do want to talk about media's role. A lot of people talk about Fox News and how for liberals, they see Fox News as racist and divisive, and you have conservatives. You have maggots that think that Fox News is the Bible. Someone, a Republican, recently told me that they thought that Tucker Carlson was one of the best things on the news, that they respected the fact that he comes out and says what is. We'll get to Tucker Carlson, but and then even the liberal media, what have they done to perpetuate violence and divisiveness and racism in this country? What could the liberal media have done differently? You have people in the liberal media who, consistently criticize Fox News, as I think Fox News should be criticized, because I think Fox News, they want to say cancel culture and fake news when, in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, Fox News perpetuates divisiveness and fake news and ridiculous propaganda that people see as the Bible. I mean, Tucker Carlson is going around, telling people that the white man's going to be extinct by 2050. That's so ridiculous. The only way I can see the white man becoming extinct by 2050 is if, God decided to blow up the entire, human population and wipe us off the face of the earth. But in terms of, the fact that all of a sudden the browning of America, that we have more brown people, more people of color. Oh my God, the white man should be so scared, as Joy Reid would say, I mean, come on. But the media has played, liberal or conservative, whatever. The media has played a huge role in the divisiveness of this country. And there are times when the media should not show anything at all, when they should just stop talking about certain things and giving people a platform, such as the former guy. I mean, back in 2015, before the 2016 election, the media was all over Hillary Clinton and her emails. Her emails. They kept pressing her about her emails. CNN did a great job on the Hillary email bandwagon, and so did Fox News. Meanwhile, you have someone else out there who is running for the highest office in the land, bragging about how he's grabbing women's pussies. Yes, I said that because that's what he said. I'm not here to make you feel comfortable. I'm here to have an open discussion about what is. And when the media, you know, I don't think they went hard enough on the former guy. They should have hammered him, but they didn't. Instead, they hammered Hillary Clinton on her emails. You know, you're going to, you know, talk about her husband, Bill Clinton, who was in office 25 years earlier, and you're talking about him. Okay. But on the same token, to be fair, are we talking about Melania and how she has nude pictures all over the internet? What potential first lady has ever had those kind of pictures? But yet you want to criticize and talk about Michelle Obama. And call her an ape in heels. I don't see any other potential first lady with nude pictures everywhere. But the former guy and the former lady, the former guy, he's grabbing pussies, and the, you know, former lady is all over the internet with nude pictures. Why didn't the media talk about that? When COVID hit, Fox News is telling everybody, oh, it's a Democratic conspiracy against the president. No, it wasn't. It was real. People were dying. And you had Fox News saying, oh, no, it's nothing big. It's nothing big. But I bet you one thing, I bet those Fox News commentators all ran down and got their vaccine when it came out. I bet they were in line getting their double doses. Just like the former guy. He was vaccinated back in January when the vaccines first became available. He did it in secret. No one was supposed to know. The media, how come they didn't push on that? When the January 6th violent, murderous insurrection happened at the United States Capitol to stop the counting of the votes to confirm Joe Biden as the next president, rightful, legal president of the United States. Fox News didn't want to talk about that. Why not? Instead, they chose to continue to spread the big Nazi lie. The election was stolen. And the thing is, these folks know the election wasn't stolen. They know that Joe Biden is the rightful president. They know all these laws out here that the Republicans are throwing out. They know they're bullshit. But what they are doing and what they do know is that they're going to use the big Nazi lie to further their agenda of racism and hate. And for Fox News, the media is allowing them to do it. The media is allowing them to do it. The media is allowing conservatives to continue this big lie. The liberal media is. We already know that Fox News and Newsmax, all these other conservative platforms, we already know that they're divisive. But the liberal media, they have a hand in spreading racism. Just like movies have a hand in spreading racism. Any media that's out there, when I talk about the media, I'm not just talking about the news. I'm talking about any media that's out there. We have social networks, we have the news, we have radio, and we have movies, and we have newspapers. There's so much media that is out there. Let's talk about movies. Let's talk about celebrities and how they use the media to perpetuate divisiveness in this country. And this has been happening for centuries. You know, the Tulsa massacre has been in the news a lot in the last year. And when the Tulsa massacre happened, one of the first, items that came out on the news from the white media was there was a riot started by Black people or the Negroes or the colored. We've been called so many different things. But it was our fault. Not once did the media point out what really happened. So, when you look at Hollywood, that is supposed to be so liberal, but Hollywood has its roots in racism. When the majority of the studios were run by Jewish people. And a lot of those Jewish people were racist, where unless you were white, you were able to move up in the industry. Whereas if you were Black or Hispanic or Asian, you were relegated to a maid, or the butler. Shucking and jiving for the white man. I mean, look at Gone with the Wind. Look at how those characters were written. Let's fast forward to 68, 69. Let me make sure I have this right. 1968. Planet of the Apes. Now, white America has always associated Black people with apes and monkeys. Go back to Africa, we're jungle bunnies and what have you. We can't, don't want to get the natives restless. But this is what and how Hollywood and America sees and saw Black people. So Planet of the Apes came out in 1968 at a time where racial unrest was really at its peak. This was the year that, Martin Luther King was assassinated. This was the year that everything, you had the Black Panther Party was growing. People were marching. And here you have this movie, Planet of the Apes, where you have these white astronauts crash land on this planet. And the one Black astronaut that survived, he gets a lobotomy. They turn him into an idiot. But the one white person, the hero, not hero, the hero, he survives. And all these apes are the enemy. Apes are bad. They're the bad guys. You have movies that are out where people say, did you go see that Black movie? Why does it have to be determined between a Black movie and a white movie? Because it has a Black cast, majority Black cast, as opposed to a white cast? Or it's an Asian movie. Did you see that Asian movie? Because it's mostly Asian actors. Can it just be a movie? Whereas if you go see a movie with mostly white actors, did you see that movie, so-and-so? Did you see that movie? But when it's people of color, we have to point out the fact that it's an Asian movie. It's a Black movie. Why is that? So when we look at the media's role in what is going on in this country, the media plays a significant role. But the news media, they could play a better role in not making race such a significant thing. I mean, even now you have MSNBC, who a lot of them are saying that, when the former guy spoke this past weekend, they weren't going to give him a platform. And I think that's a good thing. But I think it's too late. They should not have been giving him a platform in 2015 and 2016. When he came down that escalator, and said that he was running for office, I'm talking about the former guy, and he said that, Mexicans were rapists and thieves. They're bad hombres. That's when it should have stopped. But the media kept fueling it. The conservative media and the liberal media. They're giving this person a platform for divisiveness and hatred. While in the meantime, you're totally dissing someone else about how she used her emails when she was Secretary of State. A person who, out of anyone who has run for office, the highest office in the land, more than likely is the most qualified. So on one hand, the media is giving a ridiculous person a platform that is full of hatred, talking about his opponents' wives, their children, pussies. People coming out, accusing this person of misconduct. But the media is focused on Hillary Clinton's emails. I don't know. But let's talk about Tucker Carlson. Let's talk about Tucker Carlson for a moment here. So, let me make sure I get this right. Okay. Tucker Carlson said in February 23rd of 2019, and I did look this up, this is confirmed, the problem is there aren't that many hate crimes occurring in this country. There aren't that many hate crimes occurring in the country. Really? There are hate crimes occurring in this country. There are a lot of hate crimes occurring in this country. And a lot of the hate crimes are at the hands of law enforcement. I consider, stoking the flames of racism like Tucker Carlson does as a hate crime. So what do you consider a hate crime? What do you consider a hate crime? What is a hate crime? Tucker Carlson dabbles in white supremacy. He dabbles in it all the time. And it's toxic and it's dangerous. And it fires up a base of loonies that want to go and storm the United States Capitol because the former guy told them to. And having people like Tucker Carlson say ridiculous things flames hatred and divisiveness in this country. Now, I know you have news outlets out there that push back against Fox News. But at the same time, these same news outlets that are pushing back are not doing enough to make sure that this propaganda crap does not get out into the world, into the news, world where people are listening. Meanwhile, you have celebrities who make asinine comments I mean, last week I talked about Liam Neeson and how one of his white female friends was raped. And she said she was raped by a black man. And Liam Neeson said that for a week he went out wanting to beat the crap out of any black man that he saw. What about the white men who have raped black women? So if a black man said that he was going to go and any white person that he saw, he wanted to beat the crap out of him, it would really have been like, oh my God, this black actor said this. But what about white men who have raped black women? And we know during civil rights and in the South, that happened. And we know it's still happening in some areas of this country. What about that? The media, I mean, since I have this show, you can say I'm part of the media. People may not like what I'm saying right now. I'm sure people don't. But what I'm trying to do is point out things that people don't want to talk about. There is real life violence. And when you insert toxic ideas into the mainstream, you're setting up the potential for violence. I mean, for Joe Biden, about 2 weeks ago, or actually it was last week, when he was in Tulsa, when you say things like, I don't think America is racist. And as I showed that video last week where it's that but, and Kamala Harris said the same thing. I don't think America is racist, but if you have to put a button there, there's a problem. So even for the president and the vice president to come out and say they did not think America was racist, they're perpetuating divisiveness, because we know America is racist. The fact that you have people who are fighting against teaching critical race theory in schools, or you have, people in Congress who are against For the People Act, or signing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act into law. There's a problem, because the laws out there are racist. So again, the media, when you give these people a platform, they're allowed to, push their toxic agenda out into the atmosphere, whatever. and people pick up on it and they run with it. Then we have town halls. People run with it. And you have town halls. You have people who are for something on one side of the room, against something on the other side of the room, but nothing ever gets solved. So I don't know. And when you push, when the media is allowed to push toxic things out for other people to hear, and if they keep repeating it over and over and over, you start to marginalize Black and brown people. Especially if that toxic propaganda that you're pushing is rooted in racism and divisiveness. I mean, I would like to think that most people have, I would like to think that most people have enough sense to know what is propaganda and what are lies. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Now, Tucker Carlson made this comment in 2019. At that particular time, at the particular time that this comment was made, hate crimes were at their highest peak in 16 years. Fast forward 2 more years to 2021. And since COVID, you add the hate crimes towards Asians. You see what happened last summer, with the, Black Lives Matter movement and the marches and protests. And we had more violence and more hate crimes. And again, I'm including law enforcement in these hate crimes. Because what Derek Chauvin and his 3 cohorts did to George Floyd, in my opinion, was a hate crime. In 2019, May of 2019, what those police officers in Louisiana, those state police, what they did to Ronald Green was a hate crime. What George Zimmerman did to Trayvon Martin, in my opinion, again, just my opinion, was a hate crime. So when Tucker Carlson spouts off and he bloviates, and he just doesn't stop. He's pushing this propaganda. He's pushing divisiveness in this country. When Laura Ingraham, tells LeBron James to just shut up and dribble, it was a racist comment, a racist statement, and it pushes divisiveness in this country. And we have to be smart enough to know what is propaganda and what is truth. Now, I got into an argument with someone And it wasn't an argument. I was trying to have a discussion, but this person, whenever you talk politics or race, it goes to the level, it escalates into an argument until you're just like, you know what? I don't want to talk about it. I'm just done, you know. And I always tell this person, you do you, and I'll do me. You stay on your side of the road. I'll stay on my side of the road, and everything will be fine. But that person is like the have you seen the the Progressive commercial where they're all at the beach and they say no talk about insurance? And then Flo is listening to someone, some beachgoers talk about how they can't bundle their insurance together, and she just can't help herself, and she runs off telling them about insurance. That's how this person is. Just can't help themselves. You can start off talking about, you know, that the weather, you know, is a nice day outside or is raining outside. Some way, somehow, this person will insert race and politics into the weather and start talking about it. And the fucking liberals. And then you have this conversation on race and politics until you're like, I'm out. Have a nice day. Catch you later. Just can't help themselves. But you have people out there that hang on every single word that is just lies. Here we are, this is June of 2021. The election is over. And that big lie has not only been, you know, allowed to linger, but it has allowed lawmakers to pass ridiculous, harmful, divisive, racist laws. Because the media, you know, keeps talking about the big lie. So where does it stop? What do we do? What do we do? I mean, I would like to consider myself, you know, one of the smart ones who, you know, does not believe in the big, and again, I'm calling it the big Nazi lie. But the former guy is doing exactly what Hitler did and what Hitler said. If you repeat something enough over and over, people will believe it. And the former guy had a plan. He may not have won the election, but his plan worked. Now, had he won, will we have all these laws? Maybe not. Maybe we would. I would tend to think that we probably wouldn't. Or at least not to this extent. You know, but the media needs to start pushing back hard. Because right now, the former guy, he's winning, in my opinion. And Democrats, and what they're allowing Joe Manchin to do, again, every time someone steps up to a microphone to speak, you're part of the media. So I go back and I say again, you look at something, like Hollywood, they need to do better because they have spread and perpetuated lots of divisiveness and racism in this country. And they still continue to do it. Now, do I think that every time award season comes along that we have to have a Black person nominated? We have to have an Asian person nominated or a Hispanic person, that we have to have that? No. I think if the movie is good or a person was good in their role, then they should deserve to be nominated. But at the same time, we have a lot of talent out there that's not just white, that goes unrecognized. We have roles out there, that Black people could play those roles. Hispanic people could play those roles. Asian people could play those roles. When you have a drug dealer, why does a drug dealer always have to be Black? There are white drug dealers out there. There are a lot of white drug dealers out there. When you show gangs, why do gang members always have to be Black? There are white gangs. Go make a movie with white gang members. Why do they have to be Black? Why do the poor people always have to be, the one, the poor Black women are always on welfare? White people aren't on welfare? We can't do a movie where white people are on welfare? Hollywood is just as much a part of the media as the traditional media. And again, people will disagree with me. That's fine. But history has shown us that we're always the maid. Now, Hattie McDaniel, for some people who don't know who she is, Hattie McDaniel, she's most famous for some people, playing the maid in Gone with the Wind. And Hattie McDaniel was also very good friends with Clark Gable. And when Gone with the Wind first came out, it was premiering in Atlanta. That's where the movie mostly took place. It was set in Atlanta. And Hattie McDaniel was not allowed to attend. So Clark Gable said that he was not going to attend because he didn't think it was fair. And Hattie McDaniel told him that this was an important movie. He had an important role, and for him to go on, take his place in the spotlight, whatever, and just don't worry about me. Now, Gone with the Wind was nominated for tons of awards. The movie came out in 1939, 1940. The Academy Awards came out, or the Oscars. And Hattie McDaniel, even though she was nominated for supporting actress, she was not allowed to sit at the table with the rest of her castmates. Hattie McDaniel sat at a table with other Black actors who weren't even at the level of Hattie McDaniel, because by that time, by 1940, Hattie McDaniel had been in tons of movies and she was known. She was relegated to sitting at a table next to the kitchen, by the kitchen. And when they called her name, when she won, instead of being towards the front of the room, sitting with her castmates, she had to walk from the back of the room, that's by the kitchen, weave her way through all these tables, because back then they weren't sitting in, an auditorium. They were having dinner while the award show was going on, something like the Grammys now, and she had to weave her way through. And then once she got on stage, she couldn't even say what she wanted to say. She had a prepared statement from the studio that she had to say. Now, any other person would have been able to get up there and say, any white person would have been able to get up there and say whatever they wanted to. But she had a prepared statement that the studio made her say, because they wanted to make sure that she said the line, and I quote, "a credit to my race." Why do Black people always have to prove that we're the credit to our race? And in Hollywood, again, this is the media perpetuating this BS. Why do we always have to be the credit to our race? Now, Hattie McDaniel was criticized by other Black actors and criticized by other Black people during that time. Because why are you always playing the role of a maid? Now, Hattie McDaniel, she replied, "I have to eat." And Hattie McDaniel was also a millionaire. In her prime, when she was acting, and I've seen practically every Hattie McDaniel movie that has been made, not only was she an excellent and phenomenal actor, but for a Black actor at that time, for her to be a millionaire, the same thing with Stephen Fetchit. Yes, a boss, no, a boss. I wanted to act. These were the only roles that they gave us. I had to feed my family. And he was also a millionaire. Unfortunately, both of these people, when they passed away, were not millionaires. And Hattie McDaniel, for what she gave Hollywood, was not even allowed to be buried where she wanted to be buried. She wanted to be buried in what was known then as Hollywood Cemetery. They weren't gonna let her be buried there. Have a Black person be buried around all these stars. So instead, years later, her family, when the cemetery became integrated, got a centograph to be placed in Hollywood Cemetery for Hattie McDaniel, where you can go and see that. And it's a nice memorial, but she's not there. She's not buried there. So again, I talk about how you talk about the media as in the news media, but let's look at all the media outlets that are out there that perpetuate divisiveness and racism. In Hollywood, as liberal as they are, with all these liberal people, is one of the biggest racist places. So on that note, I've been talking for so long. Does anyone have anything they want to say? I see Shy Lady is on.
Yeah, I definitely want to agree with you because even back When you look at the old movies from the 1930s, 1940s, the westerns, and you see the cowboys, they made the people that were supposed to be Native American white people with darker makeup. So I'm sure there had to be some Native Americans that probably maybe wanted to be in that industry. Surely you could have found at least one or two, or even pulled some aside and said, hey, like they did, people discover people all the time in
Mhm.
Hollywood. And you couldn't go somewhere in the community where they actually live and say, let's put some of these people in these movies. You don't even really have to have a speaking part, just to have the look, you know. And I just think that since day one, it's always been like that. It's always been those who are in the majority who have determined and set the tone for the industry and for a lot of the things that have happened in America. And unfortunately, you were talking about the story with Hattie McDaniel having to sit in the back by the kitchen. That was actually segregating. That was segregation, even though it was in California, a state that's not south of the Mason-Dixon line. That was still practicing segregation, Jim Crow in California at that time.
Mhm. Mm,
So,
and and you make a good point when you say that, when you see the westerns that they couldn't find Native Americans, you look at Kung Fu. When Kung Fu came out in the 70s, and David Carradine was playing a Chinese actor. He was playing this Chinese role, and the role was originally offered to Bruce Lee, but the studio came back and said, the powers that be, that said they didn't think white America would be able to accept a Chinese person in a Chinese role. Bruce Lee was supposed to have that role, but it went to a white man who was made up to look like a Chinese person. Maybe we should stop caring about what white America thinks and what white America wants. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. And yes, it was segregation for Hattie McDaniel, but did it have to be like that? And part of the story also goes that when they were at the Academy Awards, Clark Gable was not going to go because Hattie McDaniel could not sit at their table. So Clark Gable sat part of the time. He split his time. Clark Gable sat half at his cast table and half at the table with Hattie McDaniel. And Hattie McDaniel gave parties every single year. She always had a party at this mansion she had. And Clark Gable was there every single year. And he stayed the entire time. So I have to, give Clark his props, whatever. But why did it have to be like this? It's okay for us to cook for you when we're in your house, clean up behind you, whatever, be your maid, but we're not good enough to sit at the table. When we go to movie theaters, we have to sit in what they call heaven. The second level of the balcony where Black people sat was called heaven. We're sitting in heaven. So, you look at these portrayals, in the media, and at the same time, when I talk about Hollywood, I'm also going to talk about, people who you have our African-American directors and movie makers and writers and what have you. We don't need to perpetuate the racism, out there in the media by making these movies. Let's make movies showing who we are. We're engineers, we're doctors. I didn't like the fact when the Cosby Show came out, white America was saying that it was unrealistic that you had a doctor and a lawyer in a Black family. Really? It just doesn't make any sense. I grew up with people whose parents were doctors and lawyers, pharmacists. My uncle was a pharmacist, a damn good one. So again, when you look at the media, I just look at all parts of the media. What's ever going to get things out into the masses, that's part of the media. So that's all I have to say on that. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that.
I want to add.
No, say something else. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I want to add that you're totally correct. I knew several people that were Black dentists when I was growing up. When we went to the dentist when I was a child, we always went to Black dentists. And they had wives that were professionals as well, wives that were dietitians. So that definitely existed, but they want to put good times on to show this is how Black people really live. And that there was some people in the projects, but there was so many more that weren't.
Mm-hmm.
The Jeffersons, I believe, was the first time when I was growing up to actually show Black people in a positive light that was successful. But for the most part,
No, I was going to say, and also you also have to look at it this way. People who, and I'm talking about Black people who grew up in the projects, don't assume that, they're all these ghetto people. You have smart people who grew up in the projects. So even then it's like a stereotype where they try to make it seem like that only a certain type of person lives in the projects. And that's not true.
totally agree.
So I mean, and then with the Jeffersons, I'm trying to think, any other shows that okay, what about when and I was watching this last summer when it was on rerun, when Julia came out, and she was a single mother, but she was a nurse living in a nice apartment. And when that came out, I was like, go ahead.
She was a widow.
Yes.
As well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But people are like, oh, Black women, they can't be nurses. It's like we have to be seen, as some negative. So but no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I know your show's about to end, but I just thought of I read just last week how when you say like a single Black woman, like you mentioned Julia, that was a good show. But a lot of people don't know that she was actually a widow. Some people might think, oh, she was the single mom, just had a child out of wedlock. They assume that. And it reminded me of the article I read last week when the whatever you want to call her, actress or singer, rapper, Black China, the one who had a baby by Robert Kardashian Jr.
Mm-hmm.
She made a point of saying that the media she did say the media, she said the media want to, they'll talk about Black women who are single parents because they don't have, they're not married to the fathers and they're having these babies. But when the Kardashians do it, they don't talk about that. They don't call it baby mama and ghetto. But when a Black person does it, they're saying that's ghetto and want to refer to us as baby mamas. But she made a point of saying that, and that is true. Nobody's calling the Kardashians baby mamas and calling them ghetto, although they may be rich. But you have Khloe Kardashian, a single mom, not married. You have Kylie, not married. And then you have the sister Courtney, who has 3 kids by a white man and has never been married to the father. So nobody's in the media calling them out on their lifestyle. All they can do is glorify their looks and how much money they make, but nobody talks about them as actually being quote unquote baby mamas.
Well, what's interesting with the Kardashians, not only are they not calling them baby mamas, they're also forgetting to say that all these Kardashians ran out and got pregnant by Black people.
Also true.
It's like, so
with the exception of Courtney,
okay, but
who has children by a white man that she's never married.
Right. I'm just pointing out that they all went and got pregnant by these Black men, so, but I also want to say something about Julia. When Diane Carroll came out, yes, she was a widow, but remember her husband also died. He was an Air Force pilot. So that's another thing, that was not negative, and during the show, Diane Carroll made a point of all the shows, everything had to be where it was something positive towards Black people, or at that time, colored people, but yes, she was a widow, but her husband was, he died overseas as an Air Force pilot. So I wanted to point that out. He wasn't just some Black guy, some random Black guy, whatever.
Good.
So but that is a show that I want to do. There is a show that I want to do about a lot of the Black actors in Hollywood, because I love old movies. I mean, I will watch an old movie, black and white, whatever. And I know a lot of history about a lot of the Black actors out there. And I think that one actor who has really gotten a bad rap from Black people is Stephen Fetchit. Just his story, and again, we have to realize that back then, what Black actors had to go through, just to be in a movie. It was actually better for Black actors in the pre-code days, before they started doing the rated G, the rated, whatever, in the pre-code days, before the pre-code started. I do believe that was like around 1935 or so. But there's a lot of Black talent that came out of Hollywood that, you see them and they're in these small little roles, but they were like really, really good talent, but again, that will be another show that I plan on doing. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you for coming on. I will be taking this platform to a podcast probably within the next week or two. And it will be something where people will still be able to join on, whatever, but I'll have better control of people who are coming on, and better control of trolls. So I will be doing that, and I will be providing the link for everyone. So anyway, in the meantime, thank you for showing up. As always, I'm Solid Blue Sister, and speak your truth, and I will see you next time. Bye.